Well, here we are in Vernazza in the Cinque Terre. Now it's another another rainy day. A little bit of mist on us this morning. Seems we've had rain every single day so far. But it doesn't take the glitter. It might take the glitz out of things a little bit. You wish you had sunshine to shine off these beautiful things, but it is pretty remarkable. Now, before the 11th century, pirates made this coast uninhabitable, and so the first Vernazzans lived in the hills up above. The earliest references call this town Fortress Vernazza. Its towers, fortified walls, and hillside terraces dating mostly from the 12th through the 15th century. And that's when the threats of pirates subsided and people felt like they could be comfortable coming down out of the hills. Now, Vernazza allied itself with the Republic of Genoa, a maritime power of that day. And the big red central building, you can see over here to the side here, the big red central building right there, facing the harbor, was once the site where Genoan warships were built in the 12th century. Now, in the Middle Ages, there was no beach, nor there wasn't any square. The water went right up to the buildings where the boats would tie up, Venetian style. So imagine what Vernazza would look like in those days. One of its biggest and richest of the Cinque Terre towns. It was the biggest. It was the richest. Its buildings had water gates facing today's square and a front door on the higher inland side. There was no pastel plaster, just fine stonework. The town hiding behind its little bluff was camouflaged by this kind of gray stonework, certainly not gaily painted to attract the eyes of marauding pirates. But apart from the added paint and plaster, the general size and the shape of this town has changed little in over 5 centuries. So, and take a look at the windows. Sometimes you'll actually see people just gazing quietly back. At least they did before the town was taken over by the Airbnb craze. A lot of the places have been sold out to Airbnbs to make them some extra money, and it's kicking the locals out. There's only about 500 people that live here. Now, Vernazza has two sides, or two halves. The Skiuyu, Vernazzian dialect for flowery, it's the sunny side. We're seeing it over here on the left side. And the Lavugu, or dark side, is over on the shady side, which is on the right. Houses below the castle were connected by an interior arcade, ideal for fleeing attacks. Now, this Ligurian pastel colors of the buildings are regulated by the regional government commissioner of good taste. And the square before you is sometimes known, it has some of the finest area restaurants. Jackie and I ate last night in the yellow building and outside on the terrace just below these arches. And so while the town only has about 1,500 residents in summer, only 500 of them stay in the wintertime. And Vernazza has accommodations for about that many of us tourists, about 500. So taking a look up and around, there's a small round tower up to the side here, okay? Um, Above the red building, it's a part of the original city fortifications, uh, reminding us of this town's importance in the Middle Ages. Back then, Genoa's enemies, rival maritime republics, especially Pisa, where we'll be going here in a couple of days, were Vernazza's enemies. The tower recalls a time when the town was fortified by that type of stone wall. Taking a look out over as one of the ferries is coming in right now. This is their bay. Now, if you look up on the side of the hill here, you'll see vineyards. They fill the countrysides in this area, in the mountainsides beyond town. Notice, lots of terracing, tons of terracing. For 6 centuries, this economy was based on wine and olive oil. And then came the 1980s, and the tourists and locals turned to tourism to make a living, and they stopped tending some of this land and some of these vineyards. Now, although many locals still maintain their small plots and proudly serve their family wines, this patchwork of vineyards is atomized and complex because of inheritance traditions. There's the train going through. Historically, families divided their land among their kids, and parents wanted each child to receive good land, though some lots were kissed by the sun while others were a bit shady. Lots were split into increasingly tiny, unlivable pieces, and many were eventually abandoned. The vineyards once stretched as high as you could see, but since few people sweat in the fields these days, the distant terraces, the most distant ones up on the hills, they've gone wild once again.